All right, and welcome in, everybody. Hope you're all having a fantastic, fantabulous, awesome freaking day. My name is Garrett Shoemake, and this is the Shoemake Take. Today, we continue the NFC East, going up to the Big Apple in New York to talk about the football Giants, who I think this year are going to be pretty little because I don't think they're going to be that good in 2025. But with that being said, let's begin talking about the New York Giants. But first, excuse me, if you guys do not know how the 2025 season preview series works, I want to break that down for you. If you want to go ahead and jump into the discussion, the timestamp is in the video description. Go ahead, knock yourself out. I'm not going to be mad at you. Maybe a little bit. Just kidding. No, I'm not. Go ahead, knock yourself out. But for those of you that do not know how the series works, here's what we're breaking down. We're going to briefly recap 2024, what happened, what was the Giants' record, and then we'll go into their offseason, look at any notable coaching changes, offseason news and whatnot, look at free agency, who they added, who they lost. Then we'll also look at the draft. We'll break down each pick. Go break down each pick by pick. I guess I don't know what I'm saying anymore at this point. My brain's kind of fried. But after that, we'll look at their schedule. We'll go game by game, look at the most tough matchups, look at the good matchups, look at where everything kind of shapes out for the Giants. And that'll kind of give you guys my thoughts on how I feel about the team. Are they going to be good, bad, mid? I've already said they're not going to be very good, so kind of a spoiler. But after that, I'll give you guys my official record prediction, and then we'll wrap a bow on the whole thing, looking at some important storylines. So with that being said, now let's talk about the New York Football Giants and how 2024 was an awful year for them because they went 3-14, and if it wasn't for Malik Neighbors having an incredible rookie season, this team would have been near unwatchable. It was bad. It was really, really, really bad in New York. It was a new low. It was all doom and gloom. But what they did with their offseason, things are trending upward. And I was decently high on the Giants before making this script. But as I was making it and the further I thought about it, the less I got excited. But I will admit this team is obviously a lot better than what it was last year, and you will see improvements. This will be a better football team. They're better on paper. They will be better on the field, but I have them closer to being bad more than I do being mid, although being mid is most certainly on the table. But looking at their offseason, really didn't do a whole lot outside of free agency and the draft. This year, they should have fired GM Joe Schoen, in my opinion. I think he's done a terrible job in New York. And for some of the picks that he's had, like Malik Neighbors, for example, those are gimme picks where, yeah, if you don't take him, you're stupid for not taking him. So it's like, that's a freebie at that point. So I can't really count that because that's not like you found a late gem in the draft or anything. Although in this draft, I thought they found some good gems late in the draft, which could be exciting. But we'll talk about that when we get to it. But in the free agency, here's what they added. They added quarterback Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. They brought in two veteran quarterbacks to play games and let Jaxson Dart sit and learn in theory, who we'll talk about in a moment. But Russell Wilson, he needs no introduction. He was with Pittsburgh last year. He was okay. He started off great when he came back from injury, but kind of suffered as the offense stagnated. That I feel like that's more of on Arthur Smith than Russell Wilson. But Russell Wilson in New York, I just don't know if that's a good scheme fit behind their offensive line, their weapons. Russell Wilson will be fine. I think he's going to bring some stability, but I don't know if he's going to be very, very good for the Giants. And then they also brought in Jameis Winston. Great locker room guy, great person, great personality. So that's a guy you want to have in your locker room always. Jameis Winston, I'm a big fan of Jameis Winston. I would love to have him. He would be like one of the first people like I would go asked to be on the podcast. If I could ever get Jameis Winston to be on the Shoemake Take, oh my goodness, would that be awesome. I'd love to sit down and talk with Jameis Winston about a whole bunch of different stuff. But other than that, they brought in wide receiver Zach Pascal to provide depth, Stone Forsythe and James Hudson for depth, so I can appreciate that. And then on the defensive side, they spent a lot of money. They brought in edge Chauncey Golston from Dallas, Roy Robertson Harris, who's going to be starting on the interior for them next to Dexter Lawrence. Then Jeremiah Ledbetter, who's going to provide depth. They brought linebacker depth with Victor Demukiji, Demetrius Flanagan Fowles, Chris Board. I think Chris Board's going to be starting for them. And then On the corners are the defensive backside. This is where they spent the most of their money. They brought in Saints corner Paulson and Daboll and former Dolphin safety Javon Holland. These guys are talented, young, have a lot of upside. And so you want to add that into your secondary along with Tyler Nubin and Deontay Banks, Drew Phillips. That is an exciting secondary group that I think has a lot of potential to really develop and grow into where maybe by year's end, they're one of the stronger units on this team, quite frankly. So there's a lot to like, if I'm being honest, in the secondary for the New York Giants. And that starts with bringing in Javon Holland and Paulson Adebo. Now you look at what they lost. And on the offensive side, all they really lost was those three guys right there at quarterback: Tim Boyle, Drew Lock, and Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones, I didn't want to put him here because he wasn't an offseason loss, but he was let go during the regular season. I wanted to put it here, though, because the Daniel Jones experiment is over, and quite frankly, it has been a disaster. It has been terrible. It's been known. It's been pretty evident from day one that giving him a massive contract extension over Saquon Barkley was a horrible idea. Everyone was saying it was a horrible idea, and whoop-de-frickin-do, look at what happened. Daniel Jones didn't even make it in 2024. Meanwhile, Saquon Barkley ran for 2,000 yards and is a Super Bowl champion. Giants fans are probably feeling sick to their stomachs more than they already are witnessing that. And then to see Daniel Jones just get thrown as like backup safety on the practice squad, they were doing him so dirty, and then they just let him go. Such a toxic situation at the very end there. Very disappointing. And then you look at the defensive side, and they lost some good depth. Lost a starter in Adoree Jackson at corner, but they lost Azeez Ojulari, Patrick Johnson, Isaiah Simmons. These are guys that were, some of them were starters, some of them were backups. So you lost a little bit of depth, but what they brought in is fine by me. So overall, like, their free agency, I thought they got better with what they added in free agency to compare to what they lost. I like what they added on defense. They really didn't add a whole lot on the offensive side of the ball, but bringing in a couple veteran quarterbacks to theoretically let your rookie quarterback, Jaxson Dart, sit and learn and not have to play games, keeping him as the third quarterback, that is good process, that is smart, and that is responsible. But at the end, we're going to talk about why Jaxson Dart will be starting games, because the Giants aren't going to be very good this year, like I said. But something that was pretty good for the New York Giants was their draft class, and it starts with the third overall pick, Penn State edge rusher Abdul Carter. Abdul Carter, this one I'm not going to give Joe Schoen credit for, because this one was right in their lap. If you would have passed on Abdul Carter, you would have been an idiot to pass on him. Abdul Carter, I know I said James Pierce in my Falcons video has the highest ceiling of all the edge rushers. Realistically, Abdul Carter is probably going to be the best. He was one of 3 blue chip players in this draft class. If you guys don't remember, he was a former linebacker who turned into an edge rusher in 2024, and did he shine. Not only is he explosive off the edge, he's disruptive in the run game. He showed so much flashes, great hand usage, variety of tools, just overall disruptive. He was a monster at Penn State in his final year, and quite frankly, he deserves it. He works really hard, seems like a good kid. I'm excited for Abdul Carter and what he's going to bring to this Giants defense, and so far in camp, he has been looking really, really good. So a lot to like here. And then here's where things get a little bit more controversial for me. They drafted quarterback Jaxson Dart in the first round out of Ole Miss. I am not a Jaxson Dart believer. I like the process they're trying to set up for him. I do like his physical tools. He can run a little bit. He's got a good arm. But number one, he was in an Ole Miss offense, which I've talked about multiple times throughout this preview series with Ole Miss players like Trey Harris with the Chargers, and there's a couple other guys that I'm probably not mentioning right now off the top of my head. But Lane Kiffin's offense is a college offense, so you look at, will his mental game be able to translate into the NFL, which is a lot more complex as defenses get a lot more complex, even more than, normal, because he played in a college offense. He didn't play in a pro-style offense, so that learning curve is going to be a little bit steeper, which is why they're making him a third-string quarterback so he can sit, along with the fact that Jaxson Dart is not a great decision maker. He will bail clean pockets, make poor decisions with the football, and worst of all, this one is not really much of a knack. Well, it is a knack, but some people are really torn about this, whether it's true or not. I believe that it's true that he does not have the clutch gene. multiple games last year at Ole Miss where he had the chance to go win the game or steal the deal. He blew it. And I'm going to say it. I know everybody talks about it. The Florida game, he threw multiple picks in the fourth quarter when they had a lead, allowed Florida to come back and win. I'm pretty sure that's how that went down. I'm not 100% remembering that right. I don't know. So let me know. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I knew he threw multiple picks in the fourth quarter, and there were some really, really bad throws in there too. But his decision-making overall was not great. And in an offense where he really just either had to check it down or take a deep shot, didn't have a whole lot of variety in what he was running at Ole Miss. So there's just not a lot. There's not a lot to like, and some of the intangible stuff really didn't look good, like his decision making and his ability to just, or not ability I should say, but his tendency to bail out on clean pockets and try and do way too much when he really doesn't need to. And some people, I will say this, I'll defend Jaxson Dart for a second, because some people did say that they had a big problem with his snap count, because he didn't have a snap count. He just did a bunch of claps, right? But that's not a problem to me. What's the difference between clapping and going, Blue 89, set hut? There's not much of a difference. Okay, now he's going to have to vocalize snapping the ball instead of clapping his hands. Fine. Who cares? That's not a big issue. And I know obviously a lot of people weren't happy about it because he was like in the John Gruden QB school series that he does every offseason for all the quarterback draftees. And he was like, show me your snap count. And Jaxson Dart just clapped his hands. He's like, no, your snap count. And he just clap. And Gruden's like, what the heck is that? And yeah, I mean, you want to have a snap count. I mean, I don't know why in college why you clap. I think more offenses need to have a vocal snap count because that's what the NFL does. But then again, I mean, I don't see that as a serious issue. I don't think that the difference between clapping and saying set hut is a significant difference where we're actually knocking Jaxson Dart for that just as much as we are knocking on him for his terrible decision making and his ability and his tendency to bail out of clean pockets and try to keep plays alive that have clearly broken down, and he needs to get the ball away and he makes terrible decisions. So with that being said, I'm not excited about Jaxson Dart. I do appreciate the process the Giants are trying to do with keeping him the third string so he doesn't have to play. He can sit, he can learn, but I'm going to tell you that Jaxson Dart is doomed. He's going to start games for the New York Giants whether he needs to or not, because there's a lot of things that up front in the front office do not work in his favor, and he's not going to get the patience that he so desperately needs in New York to be their franchise quarterback and develop. But then you look at the third-round pick, first pick in the third round, Darius Alexander out of Toledo. He's an interior pass rusher or defensive tackle that is a really good pass rusher. His stats aren't great, but if you look at his tape, he was a lot more disruptive than what his production would show. He has good feet, very strong, uses his hands very well. And I like Darius Alexander, what he brings. They need another strong interior defensive lineman that can rush the passer like Dexter Lawrence. And I think Darius Alexander could be that in a year or two. He's going to be in the rotation, probably getting backup snaps for now, but he's got plenty of upside. I really like this pick of Darius Alexander and what he brings. It fits what the Giants are trying to do. They're trying to get better at their pass rush. That's why they've drafted him and Abdul Carter. That checks out. I really do like Darius Alexander. And then he also drafted the Arizona State Cinderella darling of college football, Cam Skattebo, the big, strong, powerful back. He needs no introduction. He is strong, physical, hard-nosed, fights through tackles, true product or like student of the game. He is the modern version of what like Mike Allstott and Lorenzo Neal were back in the early 2000s. Those big, strong fullbacks that were just mauling people. They may not have been fast, but they did not go down. You couldn't tackle them, and they ran right through people, and Cam Skattebo was just that. Not to mention, his game in the college football playoff against Texas was one of the best individual performances I have ever seen. He was insane. He caught a touchdown, ran for a touchdown, threw a touchdown pass. He laid it all out there. And for the Giants, who need to fix their culture after winning only 3 games, that's a guy that's really going to be a good culture guy because he is just a student of the game. He is going to lay it all out there every single time. I'm excited for Cam Skattebo. This running back room is going to be sneaky good for the Giants this year. Devin Singletary is a good backup, and I'm expecting good things out of Tyrone Tracy in year 2. So there's a lot to like, and Cam Scadaboo is a big reason for that. And then you look at the fifth round pick, Marcus Mbo. Was he out of Purdue? Yeah, he played in Purdue. Started a little bit of games at right tackle, but he is athletic, really athletic, but has short arms, so he's going to be better suited at guard. That's where they're going to play him. And for Marcus Mbo, like I said, he's very athletic. He is developmental. He needs some time to develop some of his hand placement and his hand technique, but gets to his spot quickly, doesn't really move. Once he gets his hands on a defender, he is pretty solid. So there is a lot to like. He has got a lot of upside to be a starting guard later down the line for the Giants, and they need it. They need help on this offensive line, especially at right guard. I don't know if they have an answer there right now. So if he can develop, that would be really, really nice. And then in the seventh round, took a dart throw on a really athletic tight end, Thomas Fedone out of Nebraska. Was he a Nebraska Cornhusker? I might be mixing him up with another late round tight end, but he's a good route runner, good hands, great length, so you like to see that, but needs to get a little bit bigger if he wants to develop as a blocker, because he's kind of a tweener where he's not really small enough to be like a bigger receiver like a Kyle Pitts or Chigakonkwo, but he's also not big enough to really be a good, inline blocking tight end. So he needs to beef up a little bit, get a little bit bigger, get a little bit stronger so he can really develop there. But he could be pretty good. I don't know if he's ever going to be starting behind Theo Johnson. That's a long shot at this point. But he's going to be playing on teams. He's going to develop. I like his upside. Could have something there in Thomas Fedone. And then you look at the final pick, Corey Black in the seventh round. He's got some good He's got some good things with him. He's got good length, good speed, good recovery speed, has some decent ball production in his career in college. And he's a developmental guy. He's going to play on teams, but he has some upside. I like Corey Black. They need some good depth at corner. They have good top end stuff, but their depth has some issues. So if Corey Black can develop and be a good depth piece for them, that would be fantastic. I like what he brings to the table, but right now he is fighting for a roster spot, so don't get too excited. But overall, this draft class brings a lot of promise. Even with Jaxson Dart, which which I've already said I don't like, at least they're doing the right process to let him sit and learn behind two quarterbacks. I like what they're doing, but it is going to blow up in their faces. I guarantee you that. So that's not great, but this draft class is very encouraging. It's very encouraging. The players that they got have a lot of upside here in this draft class, attacking positions of need. Very, very good. Very, very good for the New York Giants. Encouraging. So now let's look at the schedule, because here's where things for me really fall apart. Kind of like I said for the Dallas Cowboys. Are they a solid team on paper, the Giants? Yeah, actually, they're pretty solid. I originally had them winning 7 games before I made the script for a reason, because their roster is a lot better. It's not bad, but their schedule is just awful. Every team except for maybe a few of them are on a similar level, and they're just gonna have it tough. As I pull it up here, week 1, you're at home against the Washington Commanders. No, you're on the road against the Commanders, excuse me. That's not a good place to play. I think the Commanders sweep the Giants this year. I think they're just that much better. And then week 2 at the Cowboys, you're on the road. I think they split this year. Since they're on the road, give me the Cowboys to win at home field. And then on primetime, you go up against the Chiefs, which, by the way, who thought about putting the New York Giants on primetime with the Chiefs? If you're trying to put a nationally televised game and put your best product on the biggest stage, putting the Giants on primetime against the Chiefs, what are we doing here? This is a disaster waiting to happen. I have the Chiefs winning this game despite them being at home. And then week 4 at home against the Chargers. That's another objectively better football team. I think the Chargers win that. And then you get an actual easy game. You are on the road against the New Orleans Saints. I think the New Orleans Saints are worse, and the Giants can pull off a win there. That's a winnable game. And then week 6 against the Eagles on Thursday Night Football, that is a loss. I don't think the Giants are going to compete with the Eagles at all this year. Eagles are going to beat them both times. So give me a loss there. And then week 7 on the road against the Broncos, much better football team. That's a loss. And then, oh, look at that. The second time in 3 weeks they're facing the Eagles. I already said they're getting swept. Boom. That's another loss. And then week 9 against the San Francisco 49ers. This one, the Giants should be competitive. They're going to be a little bit worse than the 49ers, I think. But it's not out of the realm of possibility that they win this game. So it's possible, but I don't know how likely that it is. And then you go on the road to face the Chicago Bears. This one is a winnable game. It's winnable, but I think the Chicago Bears are better, and I have a hard time thinking that the Giants are going to win this game. Their defense should allow, or how do I say this? The Giants should give Caleb Williams and this offense some struggle. The defense, if they want any chance to win a lot of games, or a decent amount of games for the Giants, is going to need to be good this year, almost really good. But for right now, I think the Bears are a better football team. I think they win. And then week 11 against the Packers at home, Packers are better. That's a loss. Then against the Lions, week 12 on the road in Detroit, that's a loss. Week 13 against the Patriots. This one is a winnable football game. The Patriots have better coaching, but their roster still needs a lot of work. So the Giants have a chance to get the win here. It's on prime time. It's on the road on Monday Night Football. It looks like my script is kind of blurry, so I'm not going to be speaking that with too much conviction. But with that being said, I mean, this is a winnable game. This is one of the most winnable games on their schedule. I think they're going to compete by this point. Jaxson Dart's going to be starting games, so him versus Drake May is going to be interesting if that ends up being the case. But I think the Giants can win. I think it's a winnable game. And then you go into your bye week, which later in the bye, you got a 4-game home stretch to finish out the year. You got 3 home games, which is nice. But you look at who your opponents are, and it's the Commanders. I already said they're getting swept. That's a loss. The Vikings. That's a terrifying thought. That going up, Jaxson Dart going against that defense, that's a disaster waiting to happen. That's a loss. And then the Raiders, week 17. Maybe you could pull one off here, but the Raiders with Pete Carroll are a better football team right now. I cannot say that they're going to win that game. But at home, week 18 against the Cowboys, I have them splitting. I think they will close their home series in their season with a win against the Cowboys. So, with that being said, I think I've pretty made it clear how I feel about this team. I don't think they're going to be very good with a brutal schedule that really does not help them at all, does not really do them any favors at all. And there's only a couple games that are on a similar level, that being the Saints and the Patriots. Maybe the 49ers, maybe they get a couple divisional wins. They're going to beat the Cowboys once, but I have them being swept by the Commanders and the Eagles. So you're looking at a 1-5 divisional finish. It's just, this is not the year for the New York Giants to actually take a serious step forward that I thought they could take. If their schedule was a little bit more favorable, okay, yeah, like we'd have an argument or have a good conversation about it. But looking at all these teams are going up against, they're going up against a lot of good football teams this year. And quite frankly, they're just better. And for the Giants, you want a couple games on your schedule that are actually favorable, but there's just not. There's really not. And that's unfortunate because there's a lot riding on this year for the New York Giants. And unfortunately, because of how tough the schedule is, it's going to break them. It is really going to break them. And quite frankly, it's going to end up leading to Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen getting fired this year, which we'll talk a little bit more at the end. But let's look at some of their strengths. Look at some things that are going to be good for the New York Giants. Let's be a little bit more positive here. The biggest strength, defensive tackle, Dexter Lawrence, was having a phenomenal year before he got hurt halfway through the year and was done. That's unfortunate. But looking at what they've added with Darius Alexander and some of the guys they brought in free agency, the interior defensive line is going to be pretty solid for the New York Giants. It shouldn't be bad. And then edge rusher is another one. Brian Burns is great. Kayvon Thibodeau really has not worked out, but he is still talented. We'll have to see what he does. But Abdul Carter is going to be starting. I think he's going to be fantastic. We'll see what he does as a rookie, but this defensive or edge group has a lot of depth, a lot of talent. So I really can't say that's not a strength. And then secondary, I do like this secondary. They brought in Javon Holland and Paulson Adebo. I like those guys. I like Drew Phillips. I like Deontay Banks a little bit. So, I mean, there's plenty to like. And I think the secondary should be good. And considering that Shane Bowen is a secondary guy, their defensive coordinator, they better be good. This defense overall, considering how much they've invested to it, better be good. Because if it's not, they're going to need to be good to overcome the issues on this offense. And the biggest weakness for them is quarterback. And it's hard to say, like Russell Wilson, how is Russell Wilson a weakness when he's a bona fide starter? Well, the thing is, Russell Wilson is a guy who holds on to the ball. He's known to do that. He's done that his entire career. And behind an offensive line that really isn't that good, I'm sorry, that's a disaster waiting to happen. That's a disaster waiting to happen. When you have a lot of youth on the offensive side that needs to step up, if you got a quarterback that's holding on to the ball too long, I mean, with a bunch of inexperienced guys on offense, that just does not mesh well. It's just not, it's not a good recipe for success, in my opinion. I'm sorry. Like, Russell Wilson, in theory, on paper, should be an upgrade at quarterback, and I think he'll be better than what Daniel Jones has brought them. He's going to give them more juice, but the fact that he holds on to the ball very long with an offensive line that's not that good, that does not bode well. So Jameis Winston is probably going to start a game or two, probably, maybe, I don't know. Just quarterback with how it's all shaped up, just right now seems like a weakness. And then the offensive line is a weakness too. John Michael Schmitz is good. Andrew Thomas is good. But outside of that, there's really not much of anything. So it's a bunch of starters, not stars. I said that, and they really didn't do a lot to change their offensive line this year, considering how disastrous that it mostly was. So that's not encouraging. And then defensive line is overall going to be a weakness outside of the defensive tackles. I know that I said that this defensive line is going to, or defensive tackle is going to be a strength, but the defensive line does have some problems. Other than Dexter Lawrence, I mean, Will Robertson-Harris and then Raheem Nunez-Roches, these are starters. They're going to be fine, but Dexter Lawrence is going to have to really play out of his mind to help elevate this group, and maybe that they are elevated because of that and a strong edge rush group that has really good depth and talent, but I would like to see a little bit more. There's just not enough here to really be excited about, so I think there's going to be some struggles, but maybe if Dexter Lawrence is great again and this edge rusher group is really, really good, it'll help mask that issue. So I'm not as worried about defensive line as I am like quarterback and offensive line. So that being said, I have the Giants finishing third in the division. You're out of the basement. Whoop-de-doo. Let's go. Let's go. We're moving somewhere, right? You're not making the playoffs, but you're out of the basement of the NFC East. Woo! Let's go. Let's go. But unfortunately, my official record prediction is the same as the Dallas Cowboys. Here it is, 6-11. I had them going 7-10 originally, but I had to take away a win somewhere, and it's because this offense has exciting pieces. I'm excited about Malik Neighbors in year 2. Darius Slayton is a good receiver. Wan'Dale Robinson, I'm not as high on as other people, but did have a lot of catches last year, so he's a big target. And then Theo Johnson and Tyrone Tracy in year 2. Devin Singletary and Cam Scatterbo at running back. I mean, they got a lot of young talent. It's just, I do not trust Brian Daboll and the mixture of Russell Wilson and this offensive line. It's got a lot going for it. And so with that being said, this defense also is going to be good. I think the defense is actually going to be pretty good for the Giants this year. They got a lot of talent. They better be, considering how much they've invested into it. Hey guys, this is Editor Garrett here. I completely forgot to give you my official record prediction for the Giants, so I am so very, very, very sorry. Please forgive me. But my official prediction for the Giants in 2025 is here, wha-bam, 6-11. I will say this first. I acknowledge that the New York Giants could very well be a much better football team this year because they got a good offseason. I like who they brought in free agency. I like their draft. The only thing is their schedule is really tough. It does not work in their favor very well. And ultimately, this might be not very analytical, but I don't have faith in Brian Daboll. I don't trust him. And looking at with what the Giants have been, they should have been improving. They have not been improving. They've gotten worse. I just have a gut feeling that this season is just going to be a big disappointment. Jaxson Dart's going to be starting games, which we'll talk about here in a moment, and it's going to cause things to get really, really bad, where Brian Daboll probably gets fired, Joe Schoen probably gets fired, and before you know it, Jaxson Dart's development is in jeopardy. So without further ado, let's get back into the video and talk about some storylines. Again, I am so very sorry for this mistake. Very, very massive mistake. Will not happen again, but let's get back to the video. Thanks, guys. But with that being said, let's look at some storylines because there's some pretty big ones for the Giants. And I've already shown my distrust in Brian Daboll and my lack of faith at all in Joe Schoen. I think he should have been fired after last year. He has not been good at all for the New York Giants as a GM, and they're fighting for their jobs. They are fighting for their jobs. If they cannot have a significant improvement in 2025, they will both be fired. And in my opinion, instead of keeping two guys around that are fighting for their jobs, how about you just fire them both and just reset with a new coach? You got already drafted a new quarterback, new GM, restart from the ground up. And so now they're going to have issues because the next storyline is, when is Jaxson Dart going to start? Because like I said before in the beginning of the video, he is going to start games for the Giants. He is doomed to start. And I'm going to pull back here so you guys look at me for a second. I'm going to pull up something. I did some research on this. Since 2016, these are all the quarterbacks drafted in the first, second, and third round. Since 2016, that ended up starting games at any point. Here's how many quarterbacks. No, excuse me. These are all the quarterbacks that were drafted in the first 3 rounds since 2016. Jared Goff, Paxton Lynch, Carson Wentz, Jacoby Brissett, Mitchell Trubisky, Deshaun Kaiser, Baker Mayfield, Lamar Jackson, Daniel Jones. Wait a second. Excuse me. How about this? These are all quarterbacks since 2016 that were originally supposed to sit and not drafted to be the starter week 1. Here we go. Jared Goff, Paxton Lynch, Jacoby Brissett. Wait, no, Jacoby Brissett was like a late round pick, right? No, he's a third rounder, I think. Right? I might take that. I have to take that out. I apologize. But Mitchell Trubisky, Deshaun Kaiser. We're not going to count Patrick Mahomes because he only started 1 game. But then Baker Mayfield, Lamar Jackson, Daniel Jones, Dwayne Haskins, Drew Lock, Jordan Love, Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Davis Mills, Malik Willis, Kenny Pickett, Desmond Ridder, Will Levis, Michael Penix. These are all the quarterbacks drafted in 2016 that drafted in the first 3 rounds that were not supposed to start week 1 for their team. Whether they were supposed to sit and learn or they were supposed to be backups, they all ended up starting games later on in the year. And that is 21 quarterbacks. And out of the first 3 rounds, that's out of 49. That is 41% out of all quarterbacks drafted in the first 3 rounds since 2016. That's a 10-year sample size where quarterbacks were supposed to sit and they ended up starting games later on. And here's where things get even worse, because every single one of those quarterbacks that were supposed to sit, they all, 100% of them, whether it was first, second, or third rounder, if they were meant to sit, 100% of them, if they weren't starting week 1, ended up starting games anyways. So if you were drafted in the first round, which 14 out of 32 out of all first round quarterbacks in that time, 43%, were starting. If you're drafted in the first round, you are going to more than likely, heavily more than likely, start at quarterback for your team. And here is why. Because Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen are fighting for their jobs. This is a typical poor franchise, poorly run, terrible franchise move that happens all too much in the NFL with young quarterbacks. What happens? The team is bad. They're not winning a lot of games. Fans are upset because they're not winning a lot of games. The ownership is not happy because they're not winning a lot of games. And so Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen, knowing that their is grass, you can probably finish that up. Their butt is grass. That sounds weird saying that out loud, but you guys know what I'm talking about. If you know, you know. But here's what happens. People are unhappy. They're losing games. And what happens? You start your rookie quarterback when they're not ready to try and give some momentum. But then guess what happens? The rookie quarterback isn't ready to start. So what does he do? He struggles, but shows some flashes, gets the fan base excited because, Jaxson Dart did some good things. Here we go. We have some reason for him to develop and be better in year 2. And then guess what? They're going to be fired. Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen are going to be fired anyways. And then you know what you do? You potentially ruin Jaxson Dart's development right from the start because you're starting him before he's ready to go. So on top of that, he already is going to have to learn a new offense because Brian Daboll is going to be fired, and it's just going to be a big dumpster fire for his development, who needs to just sit and learn and adjust to the NFL. I know playing football is the best way to get experience, but Jaxson Dart needs time to just adjust to the differences of the NFL. He played in a college offense that did barely anything NFL-esque. So he needs more time than other quarterbacks, especially out of this draft class. So he's going to end up starting games because the Giants are going to be bad, and because Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen are going to try and do something to keep their jobs, they're going to act selfishly, break their own process and plan that they have for Jaxson Dart, and start him in hopes that they can save their job. And inevitably, Jaxson Dart's not going to win them more games. He's going to struggle, but show some flashes, and then they're going to end up being fired anyways. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. I've seen this song and dance happen way too many times. You guys have too. It's pretty obvious that what's going to happen. And I would go as far as to say that I 100% guarantee you this is going to happen. It's going to happen. Jaxson Dart's going to be starting games for Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen to try and save their jobs, and they're going to end up being fired anyways. That is exactly what's going to happen. And then they're going to bring in a new head coach to try and bring in Jaxson Dart, and he's going to start. Then he's probably going to struggle in his second year because he's going to be learning a new offense. And before you know it, it's all going to go to the crapper. I'm sorry. I don't have faith in the New York Giants that all of a sudden they just are going to do it right. I don't have faith in that. You should have just fired Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen and not have gotten yourself in this mess in the first place where there's so much uncertainty. All that, when you draft a rookie quarterback, all that matters is his development and putting everything in place for him to develop. And the Giants, while they had a good process making him the third quarterback, really did not do the best thing for him by keeping Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen, who are fighting for their jobs. And you know what people do when their jobs are on the line? They're going to act selfishly. And what do coaches and GMs do all the time in the situation? They start their rookie quarterback because they know they're in danger of losing their job. And so they're trying to do something to get people happy. And it's never going to be good enough because the quarterback isn't ready. They're not going to win more games. And they're going to end up being fired anyways. And more often than not, the rookie quarterback's development is screwed because of it. So with that being said, that's my rant on Jaxson Dart and the fact that he's going to be starting games because Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll are going to be selfish and they're fighting for their jobs. So continuing, let me get back up to my script here. There are some other storylines I want to cap off with. So a little bit more positive ones. Number 3, the development of the young weapons. Tyrone Tracy, Theo Johnson, Cam Scattaboo, Wan'Dale Robinson. I guess, is he still young? Yeah, he's still young. So guys like that, Jaxson Dart even, you want these young weapons on offense to develop. This defense should be good for the Giants this year. So everything, is in place for the Giants rookies to just perform and develop and grow and give them the best chance to do that. And so my throat is really sore. I'm sorry. I've been speaking really loudly over these past couple of videos I've recorded back to back to back. So the development of these young weapons, if the Giants are going to go anywhere and get themselves out of this hole that they've dug themselves into, they need to develop, they need to grow, they need to progress. And so I want to see those guys improve. And then the last one, does this defense actually get better? I've said it numerous times in this video, as much as they've invested, they better be good. This defense better be. They have a lot of good talent on the defensive line, elite talent on the defensive line, whether it's defensive tackle with Dexter Lawrence or on the edge with Brian Burns, Abdul Carter, Kayvon Thibodeau. And the secondary has a lot of young talent. Linebackers are okay. I like them. They're not great, but they're also not horrible. So this defense better be good. And for the sake of the rest of the development of this offense and the young players, it better be good. And the Giants defense is not good, they're going to win less than 6 games. Straight up. The defense is going to be the one thing, and Malik Neighbors probably are going to be the one things right now I can say, oh yeah, they're going to these are the only things that are going to be really good for this team this year. And they're going to be the rest of the team is going to be on their backs. And well, it is what it is. Although I will say Malik Neighbors is going to be fantastic in year 2, I think. With a better quarterback, I think he's going to be better this year. He's going to be really fun to watch. I'm excited for him. But with that being said, that is going to do it for me today for the discussion of the New York Giants. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Actually, I'm getting a little bit too far ahead of myself. If you guys have made it this far and you guys enjoy this video and this content, please consider leaving a like and hitting the subscribe button. Hitting those 2 buttons helps me out a lot, helps the channel out tremendously as we're trying to hit 500 subscribers before the 2025 regular season ends. So continue spreading the word out and smashing those buttons because you guys are doing a fantastic job. You guys really are. So please, we're trying to reach 200 before the season starts. You guys are going to clear that at this point. So I'm really, really looking forward to you guys really making that happen. Now, Giants fans, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. When do you think Jaxson Dart is going to start games? I think week 13, week 14 is when you're going to see Jaxson Dart begin starting games. So let me know what you guys think about that. Do you guys think the Giants are going to be a little bit better this year because their roster should be more competitive than 6 wins, but I don't have faith in the Giants. So let me know what you guys think. And then thirdly, make sure you guys share the video on social media. Follow me on social media, whether that's Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff. And then lastly, make sure you guys check out the 2025 season preview series and all the other videos I have. The NFC is halfway done. We have the NFC North and South finished, and the entire AFC is all done, ready to go. So if you're a fan of one of those teams, or you know someone who is a fan of one of those teams, tell them to go to the Shoe Make Take and check out their favorite team in their 2025 season preview video, because they're great breakdowns from top to bottom, really solid analysis. I really like them. So please get the word out and get them to come watch those videos if they're a fan of those teams. Well, that being said, that is going to do it for me today. Hope you guys have enjoyed. And as always, I will see you all next time.